felt like it. Right? These school religious sessions are for the purpose of indoctrination. They're not for the purpose of freedom of religious exercise. On the same kind of note, but dealing with, I guess, rather older students, a judge ruled Thursday that saying grace before dinners at a state-supported military school is unconstitutional. Virginia Military Institute, based in Lexington, has been holding the prayer ceremonies since the 1950s. The Virginia chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union filed a lawsuit against the school last May on behalf of 2 cadets who had complained about the prayers. In his ruling, U.S. District Judge Norman K. Moon called the ceremonies a, quote, state-sponsored religious exercise, unquote. Because, again, quoting him, because the prayers are drafted and recited at the direction of the Institute's superintendent, the result is that government has become impermissibly entangled with religion, Moon wrote in a 36-page ruling. Every night, cadets march into the mess hall in formation. Before they are served dinner, a member of the Corps reads a non-denominational prayer. A VMI spokeswoman said all school prayers will be discontinued starting Thursday night. Note that even though it's a non-denominational prayer, it's still a violation, and the reason is, it's not like the Constitution only forbids a particular denomination of Christianity from being promoted by the government. The government cannot promote religion in general, nor could it promote anti-religion in general. If there were atheist announcements before, as a school-run activity before dinners at this military school, that would also be a violation of the Constitution. The government has to keep its big fat nose out of it. One of the cadets, age 23, will graduate in May, and said several angry cadets had confronted him on campus since he brought the lawsuit. Well, there you go. And these are young adults. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about grade school kids here. Imagine what grade school Christian will do to the grade school student in their midst who is in the family that's opposing their religion. I hope that this is a quote from him. I hope that those who do value prayer realize that there is no end to prayer in the mess hall, he said. They can pray in their own personal way, which is better than the bland way that they're doing it now. Kent Willis, executive director of the ACLU in Virginia, said the lawsuit was not meant to remove religion from the VMI campus. His quote, "Every student should be allowed to practice the religion of his or her choice. In fact, it would be wrong for VMI to prevent individual or group religious practices that do not disrupt the school's educational process." And that is what defenders of the First Amendment keep telling them, that this is not an attack on the freedom to practice religion. It is an attack on the government's involvement in that religious practice. And that's the news for now.
Well, the reason that we have, you may be wondering why we have Vic as the guest on the show today. The reason that we have
major disruptions.
The reason that we have Vic on the show today was because he attended something last night that he wanted to tell us about.
Yeah, I was in attendance with about 15 other members of the ACA to the Democracy Rising rally, which featured Ralph Nader. And this is the first time I'd ever had an opportunity to see Ralph Nader speak in public other than TV. And I have to say I was impressed. I was skeptical because some of the people on the list that I was seeing on the website were actually a little further to the left than me, if that's actually possible. And I was impressed by the number of young people who were here. And the whole message that the Democracy Rising people are trying to promote is that in order for progressives to get the changes in government that we really want, the ones that will actually affect real people, we're going to have to organize. We're going to have to get together and make sure that Congress and the president and anybody else who's in government actually hears us and actually pays attention to us. Along with Ralph Nader, Molly Ivins spoke for a little while. She was hilarious. She just was cracking everybody up. Jim Hightower, who was a commissioner, or he was in government somewhere, I forget. He also spoke. The Agriculture Commission, our crack research team has told us. And he was speaking too, and we had a couple of famous musicians, Patti Smith and Jackson Brown, which Jackson Brown was cool. I like Jackson Brown, and he did a little solo act with a guitar and him, and that was really neat. It was about 5,500 people, if I had my information correct, but 5,500 lefties in one room. That was cool.
Yeah.
So we had a really good turnout. There was a lot of people came to our booth, the ATA booth. We got a lot of positive responses, and I had a really good time.
Now, there was a setup where they had a big hall, apparently, where they had a whole bunch of different booths set
up. It was
up.
at the Burger Center, and some of the people who were sponsoring or participating in this event had their own individual. You had to have a table, and you could set up with your banner and your table and your information. So people were walking back and forth, talking to other progressive groups. And I went through and looked at around, and there was a lot of different people there. I wish my girlfriend would have came, because it was dreadlock heaven. There was dreadlocks everywhere.
Is that a particular aspect of the left?
I don't know, but it was a particular aspect of that show.
Because if it is,
yeah, you're out of the game.
I'm not.
Well, there were a lot of bald people there too. Shaved heads, dreadlocks. I was probably one of the more cleaner cut people, in fact. But it was a good idea. It was a good promotion, and there is a website, citizenworks.org, and where you can go. And there's also democracyrising.org, or two websites that you could go to get more further information on this group. The citizenworks.org is one actually done by Ralph Nader. I'm not sure who's behind democracyrising.org. There were particular attention to the Green Party. Yeah, the campus Greens were there, and they made a big showing. There was the hemp people. There were actually two booths on the hemp people were there, and I don't know if they were connected or if they were separate booths, separate groups supporting the same thing. The anti-death penalty people were there, the clean water, the anti-pipeline, this pipeline that's going in where they're going to run this high-pressure explosive gas through a 30-year-old pipeline, I think it is.
Did Rush Limbaugh have a booth set up, or
no? Rush Limbaugh was
no, he wouldn't attend that.
No, there was a surprising lack of conservatives in the room.
Well, I'm glad that they had two different groups of the hemp people. Because if they had only one, those would be the token. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I couldn't resist.
Okay. Well,
but Ralph Nader's speech was inspiring. I came back. I saw my girlfriend after that, and I talked her ear off how motivated I was to get more involved in grassroots progressive politics after hearing what he had to say. He spoke of the Super Bowl game that's coming up. I think it's next weekend. I don't follow football, so I don't know these things. But he was comparing that, there will probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 500,000 citizen hours, he called them, of people, 500 million citizen hours of people watching this football game. And with that much time spent on organizing grassroots movements, we could have health care. We could have a living wage. We could have all these things that we don't. And we've allowed the right to define the progressive movement for so long that now liberalism. And it was an inspiring speech, and I'm going to make a greater effort to get involved because of it.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad when anybody gets more involved in their government and politics and just trying to deal with their elected officials, meet with them and say, this is what I think. Matter of fact, I've got a website, like removethe10.com, and I have links, and I encourage people to go check these things out and do these things. And I've had people email me and say, well, I don't agree with you, and I'm going to use your links to go and write those same people and tell them I disagree with you. And I write them back and say, excellent, good, I'm glad, wonderful. I'm glad that I have inspired you to participate in your government, even if you disagree with me. I'm glad that this is happening.
Yeah, one of the things I took away from Mr. Nader's speech was that apathy kills democracy. He didn't say that. That's my words. But the message is clear. If you're just going to sit back and say, well, I'm just this one little guy, and there's nothing I can really do, and I just forget it. I'm just going to sit home and watch reruns of Cheers. This same problems that we're having now with like the Enrons and all the other big problems that we have in this country will continue because there's nobody speaking out to say no, and the elected officials need to represent the people, the people of the Constitution, and they're not doing that. They're pretty much what they represent is the people who give them campaign contributions, namely all the major corporations. And if we're going to get some changes, some real changes, we're going to have to set aside some of our basic differences as progressive groups. If anybody's been involved with any atheist can tell you we're herding cats. We're a bunch of different people with different ideas, and we clash on those ideas sometimes. But we're going to have to set aside a little bit of that difference for common ground. We want our government more responsive to the people. And in order to do that, we're going to have to make them be more responsive because they're not going to do it on their own.
So what kind of reaction, then, did we get to the ACA booth at this thing?
We had several people come by and look at our stuff, and we handed out well over 100 pamphlets. We had a lot of people who were just, I didn't know you guys existed. I can't believe you're here. And only person I did was one, I suppose he was a Muslim because he was asking me some things that, how would I think about Islam? I'm really not an expert on Islam, and so I couldn't really talk to him about it. But everybody else that came to the table was pretty much surprised to see us there and happy to see us there.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm glad we had a good time. I wish I'd have been there. I had to work, so I couldn't make it. But today's show, and we don't do this that often, is a topic show. We had a caller last week towards the end of the show, and we really couldn't get very involved in the discussion and dealing with ethics without gods. The caller felt that there was no way we could have any sort of morality without God, because God invented morality. So we thought that we would have a topic show today and talk specifically about ethics without gods, or with gods, just ethics in general. And so if you're going to call, we would appreciate if you could tailor your call to that direction, since we are on a topic show today. And I thought I would go ahead and ask Jeff what he had to, if he had anything in particular he wanted to, certain aspects about ethics.
Well, I know you've got something to talk about there, which is kind of a core issue, and maybe we need to start there, just to kind of drive in that wedge between religion and morality.
Okay. Well, then, and it goes back to what the caller had last week, which was basically that God made morality. Can't have morality without God.
Yeah, that's a common assertion.
It's a common assertion. It's called the divine command theory, which says that God is the one that creates moral law, and action is right because God says it is right. There are some problems inherent with that. One is that it is simply a might makes right proposition. At its core, God is the strongest. He's
it actually, as I understand it, there are two sides to that dilemma, right? Either God simply makes up the rules of right and wrong, right? In which case it's just might makes right,
right?
And that's a serious problem, because if that means that if God was to declare that killing your neighbors is a good thing, then it would be a good thing.
Yes.
And it's frightening to look at history and see how many times believers have thought exactly that their God had given them permission to do this thing, which normally we would all consider evil, and which seems to be in direct contradiction to other commandments that they think that he has issued. And the other side of the coin is, if God is not making up morality, but is simply so wise that he knows what's best, well, then he's not the source of morality.
Right, what do we need God for? We can go to the next step above him.
Then we can bypass God and go straight to, well, what are the right ways that What are good ideas for how to get along with other people? And that is exactly what atheists do. We bypass God and say, no, the point of morality is to come up with a set of guidelines that we can live by to help us all get along together. And we don't need a God to tell us what those are. We can look at the way life works and look at the consequences of our actions and look at history and figure out what kinds of behaviors help us get along and which ones don't. Right,
because like you said, if God is praiseworthy because he's so good, and the good things that he does, and yet God defines what is good, then he would be equally praiseworthy if he said, let's rape and kill everybody.
That's right.
Well, he would have to be equally as praiseworthy if he is the only source of morality, and it is he just chooses.
Yeah, then effectively God is saying, I'm praiseworthy because I'm praiseworthy, which, doesn't...
I'm getting dizzy. Circularity of the argument here.
Yeah, that's about as circular as it gets.
Yeah. So then that's it goes right in those two issues. Either God says yes, that's the way it is, and then he could say anything is good.
An argument's going to come is that since God is all good, he would never actually command someone to do something that was bad.
But then again, if somebody raises that point, then God is simply referring to some higher standards of morality, and then again we can bypass God, go straight to
the higher standards.
What are the good ways to get along?
And what that argument is really getting at is, okay, when we're talking about morality, we're trying to find a definition almost. And what the argument you just said, what they're saying is that God is goodness.
Yes.
So what they're saying is that the definition of goodness is God.
And you haven't said anything.
The definition of goodness is God, and God defines what is good. Once again, back to the circular argument.
Yeah.
It just doesn't follow at all.
It boils down once again to might makes right. God is good because he says so.
And one of the things I've told people before is if you believe that God creates morality, or the morality comes from the Bible, and outside of that you cannot be moral, then how could you actually have any concept of what it is to be moral without thinking about what it is to be moral?
Right. Well,
you don't have to think about it. All you have to do is just read the Bible and do what it says. And I would have questions as to whether you can get morality straight from the Bible, because we talk about if God says to kill somebody, that would be okay. Well, and there's portions of the Bible where God does exactly that.
Right.
For once, the test of faith for I forgot his name. Takes his son to the rock.
Abraham.
Takes his son to the rock to kill him because God said so.
Right.
I'm sorry, but yeah, you're okay.
God said it was okay.
Yeah, you're the all-powerful thing, and you could strike me dead, but I'm not killing my son. Period.
Right. Now, I think, if I recall,
you deserve eternal
in
torment
that story,
for that.
God relents.
Right.
But there was another story where Jephthah, where there is he sacrifices his own offspring,
his
and
daughter.
there is no condemnation from God or anybody.
God didn't tell him, hey, don't do this. Jephthah went and won a big battle, and he said, thank you for helping me win this battle. Because of your help, when I get home, the very first thing I see coming out the door of my house to greet me, I'm going to sacrifice to you, which tells me he's sick anyway, because usually if you're coming home, like your dog's coming out all happy, see you,
Yeah, pull out your knife and stick it.
Yeah, so his daughter comes out, and so he goes ahead and says, I'm going to fulfill my vow. He sacrifices his daughter.
Right.
God never says, don't do this. I know, okay, you're a big holy guy. I'm with you.
Yeah,
right.
you don't need to go that far.
Punishments on him, and he doesn't get struck by lightning, and then the Bible says, well, God must have thrown the lightning bolt. Nothing like that. And really, all those stories, he's presented as a very holy man,
right?
Because he made this promise and then he stuck with it. But that's not about morality. That is about obedience. It has nothing to do with what right and wrong. It has to do with doing as you're told.
Which kind of goes into the concept of hell.
Oh, yeah.
The concept of hell, of course, is, the threat of damnation is not, it's not a correct incentive to do the right thing.
Right.
Do what I tell you or I'll burn you.
Do what I'll tell you or I'll burn you. We have 3 callers on the line. I'm not forgetting you.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think we have a god on the line. It appears that we have Odin.
On line 2.
Odin on line 2. And
he's been out of work for a long time.
We will get to Odin. He can tell us about his particular moral theory. Here, just hang on.
If I could inject something. saying that you need hell to justify good behavior, right? That if there wasn't a hell, then there is no ultimate punishment, and therefore everything is permitted, is like saying that if we didn't have prisons, it would be okay to commit crimes in the United States. Prisons are there to punish people who have committed crimes, but the rules of behavior are there for the benefit of the society. They are not there, the prison is not there to make the crime bad. It's already bad,
right,
because of what it is, and because of the effect it has on everybody else. Yeah, we'll punish you, but it's not the punishment that proves that the action was bad. And that's this, weird backwards kind of logic that a lot of people have about, in their view of behavior, that it's the punishment that somehow is the reason why you shouldn't do it.
Well, I think that applying the idea that morality comes from God gives people permission not to think about what it is to be moral. You
exactly.
can say, as long as I go to church and I'm a good boy and I pray to God, then I'm going to be moral. He's going to guide me or whatever. You're free to just close your mind to the concept of actually thinking about, how do I behave in a certain situation.
With our caller last week, we asked her, if you found out tomorrow,
oh yeah,
irrefutable evidence that God does not exist, would you then start killing and stealing and raping and doing all? And she said, I don't know.
Yeah, well,
right.
see,
she said, I don't know, because then I'd be a completely different person.
It'd be completely different.
But then,
wow.
If she's thinking that without God you're just going to rampantly go out and rape, pillage, and plunder, well, I know 100 atheists who don't rape, pillage, and plunder, and they don't have God.
No, they haven't caught me yet.
No.
Yeah. Don't jump on that.
All right. Our phones are going like crazy. Should we go ahead and take a call?
Yeah, there's tons more to say.
Tons more to say.
They'll bring it up.
I think during the calls, hopefully that will come out. Let's go ahead and talk to David on line 1.
Hi,
hello, David.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Thanks for waiting.
Caught the last caller last week, and boy, it pissed me off. I'm glad y'all brought this topic up this week. It was almost insulting to pretty much what it is to be human. That if almost like church is an AA, where if you don't go every week, then you missed your fix, and you might start go out and then raping and pillaging.
Yeah. And we need to be reminded.
Yeah, it's reducing us to mindless automatons. And that just really struck me as insulting to what it is to be a human being.
I'd like to comment that what a lot of people are trying to accomplish when they have a moral system, or they're looking for a moral system, is they're trying to find certainty, and that certainty is a really, really dangerous kind of goal to pursue. There are non-theistic moral systems that are also built on an attempt to isolate certainty about what is absolutely the right thing to do and what is absolutely the wrong thing to do, and that, in my opinion, are equally bad. And I will mention objectivism, which is based on the philosophy of Ayn Rand. Okay, I think it was a honest attempt to find a very reliable moral system, but I think that its fixation on declaring absolutes about how people should behave makes it really dangerous. And the reason I'm mentioning this is you brought up the thing about Christianity asserting that all people are inherently evil. I think that where that's coming from is that they're searching for perfection, and everybody is inherently imperfect. And I think that is why the badness of humans gets blown hugely out of proportion in religion, because they're looking for absolute good, and when they find that all they can get is partial good, right? Then they say, well, there's this, inherent badness in people. I think that it is more fair to say people are inherently imperfect than it is to say people are inherently evil, right? And that's a much healthier way to look at it.
Oh, definitely. Well, good to see you back, Jeff, even if it's just for a week.
Yeah, it's fun to do this again.
All right, well, thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for calling.
Bye.
Okay. Shall we move on to Odin?
Sure.
I don't hear any thunder.
Odin.
Howdy.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for waiting.
Is that really your name?
Hmm?
Is that really your name?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Is it like cool to be named after a Norse god?
Well, not really.
All right. Just checking.
I just wanted to make the distinction between morality and ethics.
Yeah.
Ethics being like a system of evaluating your decisions based upon the consequences of them, both personal and social. Whereas morality is a system of evaluating things based on right and wrong, which is subject to your own vanity and personal interest.
I'm not sure how you could separate the two, because what is right and wrong is based on what the consequences are of actions.
But in a lot of systems it's not. For example, in Christianity, consequences are really not the issue, right? I mean, this whole outcry against situational ethics is, hey, you can't be looking at the consequences to decide whether that action was right or wrong or not, right?
Look at whether it
you got to look at whether it's what it says in the big book, right? And if it was wrong in the big book, then it's always wrong, no matter how good the consequences might be. And if it's permitted in the big book, then it's always good, no matter what the negative consequences might be.
Right.
So no, that is true, and I think what we're dealing with is three non-professional philosophers talking about this. We're going to kind of lump those things together, but hopefully we'll talk about enough details that it'll be clear that that is a valid distinction to draw between different types of systems.
Alrighty, y'all have a good day.
Okay,
thanks for calling.
He didn't condemn us to Valhalla or anything.
Oh, I always wanted to go to Valhalla.
I heard they partied there.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, we've got Andrew on 3. Andrew.
Hello.
Hi, thanks for waiting.
Yeah, I just want to make a couple points from my own point of view. And y'all were intellectualizing about morality, how some people think that God is their idea of goodness, but there's a higher morality to be achieved, correct? Something like that?
Something
they can bypass God to get to the higher morality.
We're very specifically pointing out that there's a problem in claiming that morality comes from God.
Okay.
There are logical problems, inconsistencies with that kind of claim.
Okay, I wanted to bring up something. Maybe it'll be pertinent to you, maybe it won't. It kind of brings things back to earth. In terms of the Jewish tradition, in terms of the Old Testament and the Bible, the word covenant is mentioned continuously. Covenant's a very, very important word, and the theme resounds all the way through the Bible, the idea of covenant. And initially, breaking the covenant with God was punishable in a very realistic sense, in that their crops wouldn't grow, or maybe they went into the wrong women in a village and, disease took place and they died. It was a very real, God had already spoken through them in nature. And y'all are atheists, so I won't go into all the wonders that transcend nature in the Old Testament, all the signs. But I will say their natural world was very real. Don't eat pork. Just don't do things out of time. Don't do things out of place. It was covenant. Covenant was a very real thing. It was a survival issue as well as a spiritual issue.
So, if I could just
I had one more thing, and then I was going to hang up.
Okay.
Okay.
The last part of the thing you were talking about was hell not being. I can't remember what did you say about hell? What was your problem with hell?
It's not a
or what was your argument about hell?
Well, it's simply a threat first of all, the concept of hell, I think, is immoral to begin with, but it's simply a form of punishment. It's a threat to get people to do good acts.
Okay, all right.
To behave.
I cannot disagree with that. I was raised in Catholic schools. Oftentimes, I was raised in Catholic schools in the 70s. This was before things were very liberated. In some places, there's probably still like this, but yeah, you're right. Now that's a very human element of religion when people feel so threatened by hell that it's just a negative. I was just going to comment on the concept of hell as in Revelations. That was a form of apocalyptic literature. I'm sure you're familiar with that. At the time, it was a very common form of literature. They spoke in symbols, they spoke in numbers. That's how they understood things. I was just going to point out Revelation 17, verse 11, and there's kind of a big mystery to hell, and it kind of really it takes precedence in that verse. As a matter of fact, it always kind of puzzles me. I'm not sure what it means, but I'll let y'all read it. Hopefully we have the same biblical version. I have a New American Standard, but anyway.
I have a New Revised Standard. I don't think there's a whole lot of difference.
Okay, Revelation 17, verse 11. What's it say?
17:11. There it is. As for the beast that was and is not, it is an eighth, but oh God, this is hard to read. As for the beast that was and is not, it is an eighth, but it belongs to the seven. It is, and it goes to destruction.
That's it.
And that's it.
Yeah, basically.
If you have meaning in that, I read the entire book.
I guess, it's kind of like it's saying this beast is and then it's not. I'm not sure I understand that, but anyway,
it's Revelation. It's not understandable.
The idea of fire, before electricity was a very real threat to people. And I'm saying fire was kind of a symbol of pain. Fire was a symbol of suffering. And I'm not saying that there is no hell for eternity, but I guess what I'm saying is that the humanistic terms in which, the humanistic way in which some of us are raised as children, I think hell is definitely used in the wrong sense. In this particular book, Revelation, there's a lot of mystery surrounding the fire and the evil, and that verse was a good example of it with me. And I'm not saying that gives me. Well, I'll just leave it at that. But anyway, y'all can comment if you want.
Okay.
I'd like to ask you some questions.
He's gone. The problem with Revelations is that when I read Revelations, I was just dumbfounded by how nonsensical it was. It's absolute nonsense. It's like some lunatic scribbling stuff that makes no sense. I'm sure that all the numbers and the symbolism that's in it had some meaning to the authors, but I don't know what that meaning is, and you can't just derive it by a simple reading of the text. You would have to have a lot more information to come to some conclusion as to what he was getting at.
Well, from the beginning of what he was talking about, a covenant, I've got to say that the point I think he was trying to get at was that a lot of the rules that were given supposedly by God may have had practical meaning at the time in terms of, we don't want you to eat pork and get trichinosis, because they didn't, know trichinosis, but you get the general idea. We don't want you to get sick from eating bad food or something. Yeah, right. Well, that's possibly understandable, but it bypasses the main point that we're talking about, which is simply was that if God's deciding what is right, then there's going to be some inherent problems there.
Yeah, I think that is a massive cop-out. That yes, you can blurt out the, God knew that pork was bad for them, so he told them not to eat pork excuse, and say, well, those rules were for them and their time. But it is really hard to see how the death penalty for an unruly child is justifiable in any culture. Okay, yeah. Simply a child, not doing as he's told, being stoned to death.
How about being 42 children being mauled to death by bears for teasing someone?
Well, we're talking about the laws here, right? That's supposed to be God. That's supposed to be God.
God's covenant.
Send in the bears to go do it, right? That's God personally punishing somebody. We're talking morality, right? Okay. And what God may have done supposedly on his own, separate from actually making a rule about it. I think that's a separate issue. Death penalty for women who wear showy jewelry and clothing. Hard to see how that could possibly make any kind of sense in any kind of covenant. Death by plague for those who eat too much. There are tons of these rules of behavior in the Old Testament that cannot possibly have been justified, no matter what their situation was like. It's just ridiculous. The caller made some weird comment about in the humanistic way we're raised now, that hell means certain things. As I understand it, humanists raising their kids, don't say a thing to them about hell, because humanists are people that don't use religion as a basis for morality. And he said this other thing. I wish I could have asked him these questions. He said this other thing about people seeing hell only in the negative. Well,
Yeah.
I challenge that person to call back and tell me what the positive is about hell.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything positive. There's no rehabilitation there. Once you go to hell, you fry forever.
Yeah,
So the punishment doesn't fit the crime.
that's right. That's right.
And
Okay.
Yeah,
Shall we move on to
yeah, please.
Ike? Ike is next.
can I borrow your pen, Jeff?
Yeah.
Ike on line 2. Ike, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. Thanks for waiting.
Hi, guys. Great show.
Thanks, Ike.
Yeah, I have a question for you guys.
Mhm.
I noticed that basically what you're doing right now is picking up the Bible and focusing on this narrow spot of religion out of the hundreds of religions that exist in the world and out of the vastly different systems of morality that those religions demand of their followers. You know, you cannot just dispute small passages from the Bible, this one book, this one section of the Testament, and use that to validate your argument. You need more. You need to see that since the world was created, there have been religions that have preceded Christianity. There have been numerous other religions, and what's happening is there is a fundamental common denominator in all these religions that defines what God's morality says.
And what is that?
Say?
And what is that?
Okay, the taking of human life, for example. There are several other religions that make it explicitly clear that this is not a valid form of maybe justice or whatever you want to call it, no matter the instance. And
name us a religion that
okay, let's look at
takes that
Buddhism,
view.
for example.
What?
Buddhism, for example.
Buddhism does not have a god.
You can be an atheist and be a Buddhist.
No. You're saying that just a minute, caller. You're claiming that there is a common denominator among all religions that points to the morality of God. But Buddhism does not agree to the existence of a god.
Okay, your interpretation of God, like I said, from what you're saying right now.
No, I'm talking about the Buddhist interpretation of God.
Yeah.
Buddhists don't believe in any gods.
I understand what you're saying.
Doesn't make your point.
What I'm trying to bring across is the interpretations, what you guys say call God and what you guys call hell, are essentially Judeo-Christian concepts.
We live in a society that's predominantly occupied by Judeo-Christian
And I will happily go out on a limb here and say that all religions that believe that the rules of morality are handed down by a divine lawgiver, all of those religions are fundamentally flawed and dangerous.
Okay, can you tell me, for example, why some particular systems of living seem to run, there seems to be a thread that runs through all the religions, as many systems of morality as you can actually look through. There seems to be a common thread that runs through them, despite the variations.
Yeah.
That's what I'm essentially trying to ask you guys to do.
Where does that thread come from if it's not from a god? Is that what you're asking?
If you want to call it God, if you want to call it a higher law, a divine law, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
What I'm saying is that there is something higher than the interpretation of Christianity that you use to support your argument.
I don't agree that it's something higher. I think the reason why we find similarities in rules of behavior between different religions is because the one thing that those religions all have in common is that they are all creations of human beings. And all human beings have roughly the same inherited instincts. All human beings live in societies with other human beings and have to work out ways to get along. And some of those principles for how to get along with other human beings, so that we can have cultures and we can have progress and we can get along together, get encoded back into their religions. It's not from above; it's from the level of human beings.
I feel, yeah, you do have a small point there, but I feel that you should look at the fact that what human beings have encoded into systems of living and cooperating with each other really derives from what they experience. Things that, like you come out and for example, that we're prone to hurricanes here, or, for example, you come out and that somehow if I throw a ball up, it comes down. These are laws which you did not create, human beings did not create, and we have to adjust ourselves to things.
To laws of nature.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure.
And when you have to ask yourself, now what defines these natural laws? You know, what makes it
physics?
I would not agree that they were divine.
There's a complete difference between natural law, which is really just our definition of a concept that as we understand it, and moral law, or you must act in this manner. Completely different philosophies, completely different.
That's right.
I mean, they can't even begin to go together because you're talking about two completely different things.
Yeah, natural laws are our descriptions of how the world behaves, right? How physics behaves. Those are natural laws. Moral laws, right? Rules of behavior are things that we make up for ourselves and tell each other that's how to live.
All right, guys, to finally, so I don't take up much of your time,
okay.
I still feel, I just want you to go, you cannot separate those two things. Natural laws and physical laws, they intertwine. These things intertwine to make and affect the way human beings respond to, what's around. You cannot separate them or delineate them completely.
But everything that you're saying points to a natural origin then.
You can call it a natural origin, you can call it a divine origin, but what I'm saying is
but you can't.
But that, whether you call it whether you say that these things have a natural origin or a divine origin, right? That is the difference between an atheist and a theist, okay? And we're atheists. We're the people who look at these things and say, all that seems to follow automatically from the behavior of natural laws.
If you say those natural laws must have a cause, they must have an origin. Things don't just sprout from nature. Things causes generate effects, and those effects generate other causes. And what I'm saying is, if you have natural laws, those natural laws spring from certain origins, and you have to understand that. You have to transcend that.
We want to get into first cause arguments here, or I don't stay on the topic of morality.
Anyway.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, thanks for your call.
Yeah,
I appreciate you, Colin. Thanks. I don't think first cause is going to apply to any of this here.
That is really a separate question. Whether the universe was created or not is, of course, a point on which atheists disagree with theists. But it has nothing to do directly with whether you can have a moral system without belief in a creator.
And in reality, I'm glad that he called it. But what he said the whole time, he kept saying, well, you can define it as natural or you can define it as divine, but it all comes from one place. Well, we kind of agree with that too. Not in terms of you can define it this way or that way, but that. The way that it comes from someplace. That's right. Yeah. But we just reject that it comes from some divine being.
Yeah. And think it comes from the interaction of real things in the real world.
Okay, let's go to the next call, which is line 3.
No, go ahead and take it.
Okay.
Go ahead and take it.
Line 3, Jason.
Hey,
Jason.
Guys.
Hi, Jason.
Hey, I was just going to kind of say a statement because it's real hard for me to hear and I want to turn the TV up. But I was wondering, does the atheism and view of atheism, as y'all believe in it, lend itself to any idea of, life more intelligent than us, whether it be, UFO or what other people would consider, divine? Or is it just that, atheism, as you see it or as it, is known, just doesn't like the organized imposition made by traditional religions, and if you could define let's say you had to recognize some kind of rhythm to the universe that wasn't imposing and just gracefully let free will appear, free will as a concept in Christianity has to be there to do the God and devil thing. And you're right, there's no word for hell in the Bible. It's Sheol in Hebrew, and it means land of the other underworld as opposed to a living God. So it's all very mythological in its methods. But I wondered if you had a definition for what God would have to be, what would that be? And is there
too many questions all at once, dude.
Yeah, it's about 5 questions
going
on
there.
there.
Where are we going to start?
Listen, and I'll call back with another one.
Okay. Thanks for the call.
Okay. Vic wanted to take this.
I think what he was getting at with the first question was, do we consider the possibility of of life outside of human life, and I may be off, but because he said UFOs. Could there be an intelligent life on some other world, somewhere out in space? Sure, there could be one. We don't know of it yet. They haven't found one. There are people who are actively looking to find that. There's SETI looking for any kind of radio frequency messages. There are new astronomers looking to find life or livable planets around other suns. So far, we haven't found anything. It appears that there's nothing, at least nothing close enough that we can see it or detect it in any way. Doesn't mean it's not out there. Just means we don't know what it is yet. And so until we find something that's concrete that says, yes, there's another planet and there's some life on it and it's intelligent, then the correct answer is, I don't know.
Right. If atheists don't believe in gods or UFOs or space aliens or whatever, it is because we have no evidence that those things exist. It is not because we're just grumpy about how invasive religion is, which was his second question. Right.
Okay, now did you have a comment to it?
Oh yeah, he also asked a thing about, might there be some kind of creator who then is now hands off and gives us free will and we can do whatever we want. Well, same answer, right? We have no evidence of any such thing, and so we don't believe in it. Anybody can prove to us that there's such a thing as that, we'll be happy to incorporate that into our worldview. But so far it hasn't been proved. It doesn't seem necessary. There are open questions in science, but they do not appear to require divine creators to answer them. And so we see no reason to take those ideas seriously.
And the free will argument as applied to Christianity doesn't really hold water anyway.
Yeah,
so
that's also another show.
That's a whole other show. Let's go to Joe on 3. Joe?
Hey, this is Joe.
Thanks for waiting.
Oh, thanks a lot. My question's for Vic. Hey, Vic, my name's Joe. I used to live at Chevy.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay. that is you.
I don't want to mention my employer on the air if you don't mind.
You. My bad. I want to know if you had an opportunity to see the blue balloon at Tate.
I did, and
what do you think about that theory?
Your show was entertaining, but I have to say bluntly, you're completely wrong.
Okay. What was it about it when the balloon expanded?
You're completely. This is completely off topic, as a matter of fact, though. But
I apologize.
Your idea that the world was once small and expanded.
Yes.
Completely ignores geology. It ignores all of geology.
Well, with thermodynamics, just being that the Earth occupies a space, and then we have outer space. Okay, that if it was going to radiate out, it would radiate out in all directions with no up or down,
true.
And now, therefore being expansion.
Can I get in? Vic showed some of the rest of us tape of your show too.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
thanks,
the problem is that where's all the extra mass coming from?
From inside is my opinion.
No. The mass can't come from inside, right? I mean, you've got some mass, and there it is, and it can either be there or not be there, right? If you add to it, it can't just materialize out of nothing. It could rain down from space, but that's not going to support your theory, because then you just get layers of asteroid dust on the planet. It doesn't make any sense, dude. Sorry.
I do understand you can't create matter, but I'm familiar with what's called density, and then the Earth is actually getting lighter. But I do have another theory I want to.
Sorry, there's no evidence of that either. If that was going on, it would have been detected a long time ago.
I understand. I want to have this. Can I ask one more question?
Is it on topic?
Yeah, we're talking about morality today.
I guess it's not.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, have a good one. Oh, okay. Let's go to John on 1. John.
Hello, how y'all doing?
All right, thanks for waiting.
Hi, John.
I just got a question for y'all.
Okay.
All right.
Y'all are atheists, so y'all never want to change any religion. Y'all ain't even thought about it, huh?
Excuse me?
Y'all ain't even thought about choosing a religion at all, huh?
Actually, I attended seminary and trained to be a minister.
I was raised Methodist.
I gave a lot of thought to whether or not there was a God or not, and I kept coming up with the same answer.
So next?
No.
I almost switched to Buddhism at one point.
Me, myself, I believe in the devil.
Yeah?
Yeah, I sure do.
Just him?
No, I believe in some of his fellow colleagues as well.
Okay.
And this, wait. Serious question here. Serious question. How does this benefit you?
How does it benefit me?
Hey,
I get all kinds of ladies, drugs, and lots of loving.
Excellent.
Okay.
Nice talking to you.
Have
Bye.
a good one.
It must be. It just strikes me as incredibly sad to embrace a fictional character from somebody else's religion who, in that religion, he is set up to be the loser, and you make that your god. That's really.
Well, I take it this guy was probably just poking fun at us.
Unless he's just goofing with us.
Yeah, I think he was just goofing with us, but.
Is he one of the hemp supporters?
Maybe.
Okay. Okay. Line 2, we have Lorraine.
Hey.
Lorraine.
Nice to be talking to you. My husband and I enjoy your show very much.
Well, thank you.
The reason I'm calling, it has to do with this issue of whether or not morality can exist without acknowledgement of a God.
Mm-hmm.
If one goes back and looks at both the fossil record or at actual ancient bones from modern hominids at approximately 40,000 years ago, we can see evidence that people lived for decades after sustaining very serious disabling injuries, because we can see the way bones have knit incorrectly.
Okay.
These are people who were unable to hunt, unable to gather, and yet members of their kin brought them food.
There was a
took
thing on.
care of them.
There was a thing on one of the. It was a Discovery Channel or one of the others about the bog people, and they discovered that this was exactly what happened. These people had serious injuries and had to have been sustained by the other members of their clan in order to live. If left to the nature, they would have laid down and died.
Absolutely.
I think I know where you're going with this, but I'd love to hear you finish your point.
Well, my point is simply that this is concrete evidence of a morality that existed long before the Old Testament God gave his commandments to Moses. Right. This is evidence of morality and love and care that took place long before any monotheistic religion had been established.
Right. Yes, and you can see it even today in the animal kingdom in terms of evolutionary biologists and just anybody that studies the animal kingdom in general. They've documented quite a few cases of animal altruism, voluntary animal altruism.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of evidence obviously for an evolutionary trait that would make altruism valuable in situations.
Absolutely, the selfish gene phenomenon. And generally speaking, folks who believe in that tend to have very frightening and upsetting ideas about biological superiority and genetic determinism. But it certainly does speak to a potential for another cause behind morality, the functional purpose of morality in a society. That was my point. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I read a book on that called The Moral Animal, where we discussed that the evolutionary buildup of altruistic behaviors in animals.
Yeah, and back on the subject of specifically the major religion of our nation, an excellent example of the way that morality, even in their terms, existed long before their own religion did, is Confucianism, right? And what's called the Golden Rule. Christians will often claim that their Bible is the source of that rule, and it is in there, but there are Confucian documents 500 years older than the Bible where that same principle is espoused in slightly different wording.
Okay, let's go to Mike on 3. Oh, no.
Nope, don't release.
Mike.
Caught it.
Hi, guys.
Oh, you almost got hung up on.
Thanks for hanging up on me. Getting into morality stuff, again, Jeff, I think you talked about the stoning children to death, and that's one of the morals of the Bible, which is a good point. Another one is slavery. Basically, the Bible condones slavery. It tells you how to treat your slaves.
Yeah.
But, thinking about heaven and hell and God and hell, I'm a parent and I have kids. I can't imagine anything my kids would ever do that I would want them to be subjected to eternal torment.
I can't imagine the worst person in history, right? Adolf Hitler. I cannot imagine condoning Adolf Hitler to be tortured forever.
Yeah.
Right? Take the worst person you could possibly imagine.
Right.
At some point, I'm going to say, okay, that's enough. He's paid his dues.
Exactly. And I think any God that gives you eternal torment is not a moral God. And how can people, that's most Christians, that's good. Hell is good for that.
Yeah.
And that's,
a lot of them will, nowadays, there's a more modern spin on that, which is, oh, well, hell is not really this place of fire, it's just separation from God, right?
Yeah.
You have up until the moment you die to sign up to be a Christian. And after that, you're stuck. If you decided that you didn't want to be a Christian, then you live in this horrible state of permanent separation from God for eternity. Well, if being connected with God is like a nice way to be, and being separate from God is a bad way to be, it's exactly the same problem, right? Because now there's this arbitrary line, right? You live your life, if you don't join the club before this deadline, then you get eternal torment. It amounts to exactly the same thing.
And one thing that you can do to be sent to hell is just not believe in God.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
what I'm saying.
Eternal damnation? I don't think so. That's all I had to talk about.
Okay.
Thanks for calling.
All right.
Was that Mark?
That was Mike.
That was Mike.
You know, another thing that a lot of Christians, they don't understand, or they limit their own God's power. They don't understand omniscience, omnipotence. They don't understand eternity. They really give it kind of short shrift, and they don't really follow what these concepts, they don't follow them to their logical implications. And another thing that I've got Christian friends and even Christian family members, and this has really made a big impact on some of my family members when I had them look me in the eye and tell me that not only was I going to hell, but that I deserved to go to hell and be tormented eternally,
simply
according to their belief.
You're born deserving to go to hell.
When they know at the very core of their being that I don't deserve that because I'm not a bad person. And that really causes them to think twice about it. It's a disturbing concept if you actually force yourself to sit down and think about it. So, what do we have for the next call? Marley? Mark. Oh, Mark. Oh. Mark.
Yes.
Thanks for waiting.
Hey, no problem, guys. First of all, I just want to say I apologize if I repeat anything someone just asked, because I just joined in not too long ago.
Okay.
Watching you guys, but listening.
We'll just hang up on you.
Okay. My first question is, because I actually had another question, but I just want to ask something that I just heard one of you guys say, and pardon me for not knowing which one of you said it, but said something about Christians not understanding the omniscience of God, or not understanding eternity. What exactly did you mean by that?
Well, when I talk with Christians, a lot of times they'll call the show and they'll make different claims, and they'll talk about, let's talk about God being responsible for certain things that happen on earth.
Right.
And I will say, just in terms of, if I was to give birth to a child, just as an example, that I knew before I gave birth to that child, assuming I could give birth, if I knew before that child was even born that that child was going to be a mass murderer, and I still gave birth to that child, and I knew there was nothing I could do to stop it, then ultimately I am responsible for the deaths of those people, and I am an accomplice because I had foreknowledge of that. When you talk about omniscience and things of that nature, that's exactly what you're talking about. And yet they want to absolve God of anything bad that happens and say, well, that's just human nature. We're fallen. But this all had to start somewhere, according to their belief, and it all started with God. And that's the sort of thing that I'm talking about.
It runs back.
That's just one example of the type of thing.
The implications of these omni characteristics that they assign to their God, right? I mean, if a entity has those traits, it clearly implies other things, and most Christians don't think through to the other implications.
So you're saying that if he is omniscient, because bad things happen, he's responsible. Is that what you're saying?
It's a little more complicated than that. Do you mind if I
Sure, go ahead.
Take it? Okay, we have a God who knows everything,
right,
including everything that's ever going to happen.
Correct.
Right? And he's all-powerful, so
right,
he can do exactly whatever he wants.
Correct.
And then you say that entity created our universe.
Correct.
Then what you're saying, and this is where most Christians don't think all the way through, then what you're saying is that this guy who knew absolutely everything that was going to happen if he created the universe in this particular way, right? Mm-hmm. He goes ahead and creates that world, right, knowing that eventually we're going to have a Hitler, who raises up a huge army in Germany and genocides Jews and stuff, right? Knowing that's all going to happen, he snaps his divine fingers and creates that world anyway.
Right.
He is directly responsible for that outcome. Because he could have said, you know, if I make it that way, then we'll get this Hitler. But if I change the characteristics of the world a bit, I can get a completely different history that will grow out of that, right? I can make the world an entirely different way. And since he did not choose to make it a different way, he is responsible for the way it came out.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Are you married?
Yeah.
Does your wife have a choice whether or not she loves you?
Does my wife have a choice whether or not she loves you? I think she does.
Sure.
Right, okay, but if she had no choice to love you, she had to love you, would that be love? Would that be genuine love?
It's going to free will. Yeah, it's going to free will.
Because it is free will, of course.
I don't know. I think it would be hard to call that love if it was obligatory.
It wouldn't be.
What?
And you wouldn't have the same feelings for her because she's just a robot and she has no choice but to love you. That's not genuine love.
You know, that's fine. Doesn't absolve God of the responsibility.
But,
even if God finds himself, we're getting back to the fact that this God is supposed to be all powerful, right?
And
he can do whatever he wants.
Because
you're
he
telling
allows
me,
it.
no, hang on.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hang on. If he has to create the world in such a way that he is forced to tolerate all of the horror that's going to come out of that world that he creates, because if he doesn't, we don't have free will, then what you've just done is you've made that God less than omnipotent.
That's not true.
A all-powerful God is not bound by things like, you know, your little example of they have to love freely or otherwise it doesn't count. That a God that is all-powerful can do anything.
Well, of course,
anything.
it's not a matter. But see, that's not the point. It's not that he can't do it. Where is the glory for God? We were created to love God, to worship God. If he creates,
so he's an egomaniac.
They're going to love and worship him. That's not love. That's you have to bring free will. Of course, I'm bringing free will into this.
Dude, too bad. If your God, who's supposed to be all powerful, still can't figure out a way to make creatures to worship him, which is a creepy concept in the first place, that this guy needs to have these followers to glorify him, right? But if he has to do it this way in order to get the glory he's after,
but he doesn't.
Big deal. Does not resolve him of the responsibility. It doesn't. He could happily just sit there all by himself in eternity and say, well, you know, I could create a race of beings to glorify me, but if I do, I'm going to put them through all this horrible stuff in the universe that I create. So I'm going to not.
Okay.
He could have made that choice.
Okay.
He didn't make that choice. He's responsible.
Okay, I understand your point about responsibility. I didn't mean to get you off your topic about morality.
I think that this does actually kind of goes into morality. And another creepy little thing I'd like you to think about that deals with morality. If you're, I'm assuming that you believe in the Christian God of the Bible.
Yes, I do.
And you believe that he is omniscient and omnipotent.
Absolutely.
So God could, when it comes to worshiping God or absolving your sins,
yes,
God could have chosen any method he wanted to do that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So what does it say about God that he chose the shedding of innocent blood and the taking of innocent life to make him feel better about you? He could have done it any way he wanted. He chose taking a lamb, a bull, a goat, a dove, slitting its throat, sprinkling the blood everywhere, hanging Jesus up on the cross. He said, that and only that will make me feel really good about you. What does that say about him?
Well, I don't really think that's necessarily exactly. It's like, I don't feel good because you didn't. I think you have to understand original sin and...
No, you're throwing red herrings everywhere.
Can I jump in on the original sin thing?
Sure.
Right? Again, this God we're talking about is already responsible for the original sin.
Well, I don't believe that, but
because he knows everything. He knows everything. He knew when he created the universe that Eve was going to take the apple and cause this whole thing.
Absolutely.
What? Right?
Yes.
He knew that. Went ahead and created it anyway.
Yes.
He's responsible for that.
However,
frankly, back to the subject of free will, right?
Yeah.
What that also means is that Eve had no free will. Because
why is that? Because he knew?
Because God created her knowing exactly what she was going to do. Every single move she was ever going to make, every single thought she was ever going to think. God already knew that before he created it. And therefore, she is nothing but a wind-up toy in that model.
I think you're asking us to understand something with a human finite mind you can't understand.
No. There's nothing about the finiteness of my mind that
can understand that.
No.
It's an infinite concept.
These things automatically follow from the characteristics you're assigning to your God.
Well, yeah, and I have 2 points that I think. First of all, you brought up, you have to understand original sin. Any concept of any sort of sin does not explain God's choice of atonement for that.
Sure it does.
No, it's not. It's a separate issue. That I sinned or somebody originally sinned has nothing to do with, there's no direct connection between somebody who did an original sin and let's slit this bull's throat and spread blood everywhere, or let's kill somebody to absolve someone of that original sin. You're throwing red herrings everywhere. You're trying to send people off in every direction, but you're not answering the question.
Okay.
God can do anything he wants. He chose to
do it that way.
Blood.
And to further that point, Jesus dying on the cross does not absolve me of anything.
It's substitutionary.
Anything that I've done.
And not only that,
it's the faith and the act that saves.
What?
Huh?
It's the faith and the act that saves. That's why he died.
But he's still, him being tortured and killed does not absolve me from anything that I may have done in my life.
And
it can't.
Which gets us to another point, which is that the whole thing is evil in the first place, because all this whole original sin thing is this God of yours saying, because the first 2 humans did this naughty thing, all human beings now are immediately guilty. Okay? Do we, in the United States of America, if your grandfather committed a crime, do we incarcerate you? No. Americans, our system of justice, understands that the descendants of lawbreakers are not responsible for the actions of their ancestors. And yet your God makes all of humanity responsible for the actions of our ancestors. And I guess I should jump in here and say, of course, we don't believe any of this stuff. We think it's all fables.
Disclaimer.
But if it's, we're just taking your religion's beliefs, and we are following through to the obvious implication.
And another obvious implication of the original sin here in Adam and Eve is that how could Adam and Eve have known they were doing something wrong before they ate fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil?
Because God told them, you may not do this, and they did.
So then they didn't need the knowledge of good and evil from the tree.
No, they didn't.
Okay. They already had it.
They were created not to know. They were created.
That's fine. That's interesting. You know what else is interesting?
What's that?
I don't know if you're a biblical literalist, but how much time roughly do you think took place between the eating of the apple and the death of Jesus on the cross? How many years are we talking about?
No idea. The Bible doesn't even get into time.
But it's some significant period of time, right? It's not like, the next afternoon.
It's thousands of years, probably.
Thousands of years.
Yeah.
So here's this God who knows everything, and it takes him thousands of years to come up to it with a solution for this original sin.
No, we couldn't do it.
No. Us had nothing to do with it. Us had nothing to do with it. Your God, who's supposed to be all-knowing, took thousands of years to implement a solution. Well, what is that? Doesn't make any sense, dude. That's why we don't believe this stuff.
Understand. I don't know how to answer your question because you seem to be you can't understand, you can't separate free will from him knowing.
Let me talk about free will real quick.
But we're not on free
will.
Well,
but
now.
I think
we're on how long it took your all-knowing God to figure out how to fix the problem, which he should have already known was going to happen before he created the universe.
To God?
But if we remove the free will, if we remove the free will argument, then you don't have anything to stand on. But you're saying it all balances on free will.
What's 1,000 years to God?
Yeah.
Nothing. What are we to God? What are we to God?
But you're saying why did it take thousands of years? But for him, that's nothing.
Sure, but what are we to God?
But we're not God.
What are we to God?
What are we?
What is God's attitude supposed to be toward us?
Love.
Love.
Absolutely.
So what you're telling me, even though the time may have been insignificant to him, thousands of years worth of human beings lived, died, and went straight to hell before your God thought of a solution to help us out.
It's not
Yes.
that everybody that died before Jesus
Absolutely.
went to hell.
Huh?
No,
What?
it's not that everybody who died before Jesus Christ went to hell.
Then what was the point of Jesus? What was the point of Jesus' death then? What did that solve?
So we would not have to raise bulls in our backyard.
The ultimate lamb. He became the ultimate lamb because we couldn't do it right.
The
We
ultimate
failed.
lamb.
Not God. His plan was perfect from the beginning.
Red
No,
herring.
it wasn't.
Oh, God has a plan?
Did God know that the serpent was going to tempt Eve?
Yep.
And he knew that she was going to fall for it?
Yep.
And that's his perfect plan?
We failed.
No.
He knew.
Your God
The
built
plan
the
was
universe
designed
when
as
that
a
was going to
failure.
happen. Knowing that it was going to happen, he flipped the switch, and it all played out like a
movie.
All of us wind-up toys doing only exactly what your God knew we would do all along.
He built us to fail.
Okay.
And
Well,
when you're talking,
obviously we're not going to get anywhere.
Well, when you're,
I think we have very well explored exactly the kinds of implications of your belief that folks like you do not think through.
Okay, well, can I ask you one question?
Well, let me get with the free will real quick. Okay, because free will I think has a lot to do with this. What we're talking about morality anyway.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. According to the Christian belief, man is born with a sinful nature.
Yes.
Okay. I'm born needing God.
Yes.
And I am born with a sinful nature, which means I am inclined to do things that get me further from God as I live my life.
If you watch any child, yes.
Okay. Now, that is how can that be fair? Because what that is like playing a game of dice with loaded dice. You throw those dice, and then you're forced to abide by the consequences of that roll. In no alternate universe, or this universe, would you think that was fair. You wouldn't play that game, but you're allowing God to play that game. It's not fair. It's not free will. If being born saddled with a sinful nature it can't be free. It's just like playing that game. Bam, the dice are loaded. You lose from the beginning.
Yeah, if it was just an average nature and we could go either way, that'd be fair.
Okay.
Right?
If I was
But it's
born
not.
with a chance to reach bliss or nirvana or whatever, or perfection or an afterlife, if I was born with a chance to get there without God and an equal playing field, I could do it either way, and then you may have some merit there. But you can't say free will when I've got a sinful nature that immediately sets me apart from God.
Okay. I understand your point. Can I ask one other question? And then I'll give somebody else a chance.
Very quick. We have some other callers.
Okay.
We're almost out of time.
The gentleman called before me was talking about hell, and one of you gentlemen said something about, how is somebody going to tell me that I'm going to hell when I'm not bad? My question is, how do you distinguish what is bad and what is good? Why is Hitler bad? Who says Hitler's even bad if there is no God to give you an ultimate
You did
standard?
say you missed the beginning of the show,
Okay,
right?
excellent. Thank you for that question. We're going to go ahead and hang up on you, but we'll go ahead and get on that.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Rules of behavior that we live by are there for the purpose of helping us get along with each other. Therefore, by that standard, any behavior that interferes with our getting along together for everybody's optimum benefit are bad. Right, that is what we mean by bad.
We
do
enjoy
not mean,
the benefits of a society.
Right, and opposed to that is the theistic view of good and bad, where good is just whatever the God happened to have commanded, and bad is whatever is in opposition to what he happened to have commanded. Our view of rules of behavior takes into account the needs of humanity, and a set of rules that's just imposed on us that are inflexible and handed down to us from multiple thousand-year-old civilizations are not designed for the purpose of our best interests.
Okay, let's go to line 2. Gavin? Okay. Gavin?
I'm here.
Thank you for waiting so long. Sorry about that. We have about 5 minutes left, so if you can go ahead and kind of hurry up.
I'll shoot my point out there really quick. And,
okay.
Maybe we'll get this rolling. One thing is obvious, which you guys do strive for that, right?
Obviousness?
Yeah, the apparent.
The apparent, okay.
Well, being that you do recognize there is higher power.
Mm-hmm. No, we don't recognize that.
Yes, because...
Well, give me a definition of higher power first, and I'll tell you whether or not I agree with that.
You're pointing everything you reference to is the higher power. Why would you be trying to oppose that all the time if you didn't have a wickedness inside of you already?
Whoa. We are criticizing a belief system. That belief system happens to involve belief in a higher power. We don't believe in that higher power, but we can look at the belief system and see what its consequences are.
I don't think you would try to recognize all these things unless you did
We
realize.
do believe in it because we talk about it a lot.
Oh, is that nonsense?
No, I'm not saying you believe in it. I'm saying you recognize that there is the higher power there, or else you would just leave it aside.
You're saying the same thing. We talk about it, so therefore we believe it.
If you lived in a culture that you considered bad in some way, you would have to talk about what you think is bad in that culture in order to address that concern. That's all we're doing. That's nonsensical to say that because we use the G word that we therefore believe in a God. We don't.
You're doing a lot more than using it by setting up a damn TV show, running through all the props to keep yourself behind the picture whenever you really don't realize that you're living in everything that you speak of.
The reason we're here, and the reason we do this show is we see religion in general and Christianity in particular in our society doing massive harm to our culture. And we are here to comment on that.
Massive harm.
Massive harm.
Massive psychological harm.
Yes, I do understand that. And one other point, if I may.
Very quickly, because I would like to get to the last caller as well.
One more caller. For each of you to ask yourself personally, and whenever you do see the Almighty, please do.
Okay. Alrighty then. Line 3 will be Kristen. Kristen, how you doing?
Good, guys.
We got like a couple minutes. Sorry to make you wait. Go ahead.
We'll make it fast.
Okay.
Jeff, you said you dabbled in Buddhism a little bit.
Actually, I didn't dabble. I read about it. I hoped that this would be, a philosophy that I could sink my teeth into and think it's good. And what I think I found is that it's been taken over by too much superstition and dogma. I couldn't get
because
past
the topic was on morality and just Buddha. I have an East Asian studies degree, and it's just that Buddha always stated that he did not want to be viewed as a deity.
That's
that
right.
He just wanted to be viewed as a person, and it was just a 12-step process, to be moral people, basically, and to relieve
the original humanists. I have great respect for that. It's just the current incarnations of that's the wrong word to use. The current form taken by Buddhism that I looked into wasn't really very appealing to me personally.
Sure, a lot of Americans especially have pulled and stretched it. But that was it.
Okay, well, thank you for your call. Thank you for waiting so long.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, we're down to our final minute of the show.
Whew. It's been a whirlwind.
Freewheeling. We walk on the tightrope every week live.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thanks for having me on as a guest again. It's like old home week.
Enjoyed it?
I haven't been on the show in a long, long time, so it was kind of fun.
I enjoyed your discussion of the Nader.
Thank you. Yeah, I was really impressed by that, and I'm glad I went, because I almost didn't. So I'm glad I made up the mind to go.
Oh, we have half an hour, 30 seconds left, but remember, where's the number? If you have comments about the show and you didn't get on, call 371-2911. That would be our voicemail. You can go ahead and leave a comment or something like that, and I'll try to get it on the next show.
371-2911. Wow.
Wait. No, we don't do that one anymore.
10 seconds. Yes, we do that.
All right.
Okay. Remember, we don't hate you.
We just think you're wrong. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Good show.
Oh, really?
Up to you. You want to take them in the studio?
Yeah.
Got line 2? Which one?
You're going to have your mic. They won't hear you. Okay.
Do we know who?
I have blinking on 2 and 3.
Just pick one.
Got it? Give us a line number.
3. Hello?
Hey, it's me.
Who's me?
Martin.
Hi, Martin.
Oh, hey.
I just got in and caught the last 10 minutes, and it looks like it was an awesome show. But as I predicted, my tape deck, I don't think I said it properly. So did somebody tape it?
I can't make a tape.
Okay.
First 10 minutes are not there, but we got a tape.
Okay, good. Well, I'm really looking forward to watching. It looks like David did a great job, and you guys had an awesome show. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, we had a good time today.
Yeah, sounds like fun. Okay, well, I'll see everybody next Sunday.
Okay.
All right.
Take care.
Bye, Martin.
Who's this other person?
Right.
Okay.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, hey, is this Vic?
No,
this is Vic.
That's Vic.
Oh, well, listen, hey, this is actually an open question, all right? This is Aaron. I've been down to the bagel shop a couple times or something. I think I've met all three of you, but I don't know if you remember me right off. I don't think any less of you if you don't.
Aaron, the name sounds familiar, but it's hard to place the face.
What can we do for you?
That's fine. Check it out. That guy Joe who called you before.
Oh yeah, let me tell you the story. We're off the air now, so I can tell you this one.
Tell me the story anyway, because I fucking want to hear it.
Okay. Joe was a resident at the property where I work at, and one day I was doing a work order in his apartment, and he recognized me from this show, and we were talking about cable access, and I kind of knew who he was, and then he handed me this tape, and I took it home. And I watched it, and it's this tape where he has this balloon, and he puts these little cutouts of the world on it, of each of one of the countries, and then he puts them all together. It looks just like Pangea, and then he blows the balloon up, and they sort of go out in almost the same shape that they're in right now.
Right.
And he has this theory that the world, that the flood actually didn't come from above; it came from below, and it just popped out of the earth somehow and flooded the world. And that the world is actually expanding, and that we're actually getting lighter, and it's really weird. Completely ignores all known geology, and it's just, but it's very funny.
Oh yeah, well listen, actually, that's actually what I'm calling this. I've seen some of that on Access. I mean, that's like
yes,
the theory
you've
for
seen
how
it.
People built the pyramids and shit too, right?
Yeah.
Because people are stronger, relatively speaking.
He does run this on cable access really frequently, so you probably have seen this show.
Well, this is the deal though. Is I'm going to be moving out of town actually in less than 2 weeks. I'm moving to LA, and I was hoping I could get a copy of that tape somehow to bring with me.
Who has it? The tape of Ashley has it. You can have it.
Oh, that would be awesome.
You know we have our internet audio show now too, right? Hello?
Hey.
Hello?
Aaron, you still there?
Oh yeah.
You know about our internet audio show now?
Yeah.